When you're a kid, you still got an idea of what the quote unquote great body looks like, and I started to get like a little few names here and there. It wasn't intense bullying by any means. It really wasn't. But it was enough to make me self-conscious. It was enough to make me look down and be like, I'm not really happy with what I see here. So what I ended up doing is I would go to the toilet cubicles to go change my shirt. I would pretend like I was just going to the bathroom, go and change my t-shirt at the same time, come back out, so I didn't have to experience, the name calling and all that type of stuff as well. So that hit me hard because I was like, I'm a super active kid. I'm kind of eating what just about everyone else is, which isn't, particularly healthy as a child, but I was still holding this body fat and I wasn't really sure what to do about it.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Strong by Design podcast. This is fun. I have not recorded a podcast in what feels like weeks, but I don't know. Maybe it's been like 10 days. You kind of get podcasts in spurts sometimes as a host. Elliot knows this, where you could do 3 or 4 in a week, and then sometimes you could go 2 or 3 weeks without one, and it kind of depends on when your guests are available or the topics that you feel like talking about really hit you hard, and so you kind of hit record when you're feeling the passion or the energy to really talk about something. It's so excited to have our guest today. This is a gentleman that I met a few months back. I was on his podcast, and we just really connected, and it just made sense to bring him on the Strong by Design podcast, which is great. Just to continue the conversation, get to know each other better. We're in alignment on a lot of things, and he's making the world better in terms of helping people transform their bodies and their minds and their spirits, much of what we're doing here on Strong by Design and here at Critical Bench. And so perfect connection to bring him on board. Before we introduce our special guest and get to know him better, I do want to thank all of our amazing guests our amazing listeners, I should say, or return guests of the podcast, people who are supporting us and coming back and who have been listening to us for years at this point, or maybe just you found us in 2023 and you've made us one of your favorite top 5 podcasts maybe this year. I know I always kind of rotate through about 5 or 10 myself. Or maybe this is the first episode you've ever heard on Strong by Design, and you're excited, and we're excited to have you. Thank you so much. We appreciate every single listener that we get, no matter where you're coming from. It's fun to look at the stats and see that we have listeners from all over the globe, certainly here in the States and, in North America, Canada, for sure, but all over Australia, the UK, Ireland, Germany, the Philippines, Iraq, in South America, in the Caribbean. It's so fun to go on and see, 30 downloads came here and 78 came from here, and places that I've never visited, but we're making an impact. And so that's what makes podcast content so great, is that it can be consumed by anyone, anywhere, at any time. And our conversations can really reach people and help people in ways that we'll never know. And so if you could, or if you would, at the end of this episode, we would love it if you would hit 5 stars, give us a rating. Let us know that you're loving the show. And if you want to even take it a step further, leave us a review. It could be a sentence or two that talks about maybe this episode or a past episode that touched you, that you found exciting or was very powerful for you, or what you think of our podcast as a whole. Maybe a general overview of how you feel the podcast is helping you in life. And of course, we're trying to reach people in all different capacities and helping their bodies helping their minds and helping their spiritual walk and their faith. And so we just are so encouraged by all of you and would love that feedback. So thank you in advance for that. And I'll ask you at the end for another very simple favor, but I'll save it till the end. So our special guest today on Strong by Design, Elliot Hasoon, a gentleman that I came to know, as I said, a few months ago. He has a great platform, coaching platform, helping mostly men, it looks like, but probably some women too. We'll talk about that. Transform their physiques. Excuse me. He also has a YouTube following. I was checking out some of his YouTube content, and it does some great follow-along workout material that really pairs nicely with what we're doing on a lot of our on our YouTube channels and a lot of our content. His website is dedicated to helping people transform their physiques. Which, as we know, if you focus on your body, your mind also is impacted by that. We're going to get into that. And I just wanted to share a little bit about him before he talks about himself and all his greatest moments and his journey, what has brought him to where he is today. He's an experienced online health and fitness coach, and he's host of a podcast called the Simply Fit Podcast. His journey with health and fitness began over a decade ago, where he set out on a mission to get in shape after being subconscious about his body as a teenager in school. And I'm sure a lot of you listening have familiarity with that. I think there's a lot of people who felt that way about themselves at that very interesting time in our lives when we go from like 12 to adulthood in about a 5 to 6 year span. There's a lot of interesting moments there. It didn't take long for this exploration to become a passion, which led him to deciding that he was going to make a career out of this. And over the past 10 years, Elliot's gone from a young personal trainer to one of the more experienced online health and fitness coaches globally. He specializes in body transformations with a huge focus on long-term sustainability and delivers those he works with the solution to get in shape and stay in shape for life. And so I think that's a really important thing. It's not just give people the tools, but then to make sure that they're able to be sustainable and have those gains over the long term. We're gonna definitely get into that in just a little bit. So, Elliot, welcome to Strong by Design. It's so great to have you.
Chris, thank you so much for having me. It was one hell of an intro. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it. I truly appreciate being here.
Yeah, the reason why I'm a podcast host, because I don't shut up, right? I mean, that's
makes you a great guest too.
I'll tell you what, man, you have to be able to talk, and be a communicator. It can be my greatest asset or my worst my worst enemy, I guess you could say. I used to get in trouble when I think back to school. The only times I really ever get in trouble in school is because I talk too much. The teachers would pull me aside out in the hallway and they'd be like, "We love you, Chris. Like, you're great. You're a good student. You try hard, but it's my class. So could you let me please talk?" And then just try to be a little bit more quiet, because I was just always talking with people. But that's led obviously to hosting a podcast and to making a lot of video content over the years. So that's been fun. So you're doing a lot of the same stuff that we do here at Critical Bench, Elliot. That's why we hit it off so well when you were gracious enough to have me as a guest on your podcast, the Simply Fit podcast. And I still appreciate that and really enjoyed getting to know you. But I want to get to know you a little bit better and share who you are with our audience. That's the luxury of having our own podcast, is you meet great people, and then we can take those connections and then make them even more powerful, more magical by sharing it with hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are listening. Tell us a little bit more about those early years, those self-conscious years, back when you were a kid and before that passion really struck you. Like, what was it that really has stuck with you over the last 10 plus years, and what's the driving force there?
For sure. So when I was much, much younger, just like many of us, I had no real experience with health and fitness. My mom and my parents and my dad as well, they wanted me to be healthy, of course, just like every good set of parents do. However, as we probably know, most adults don't know a huge amount about health and fitness. So, they go about putting what was on my plate, which was healthy, which was, full of these nutrients, but it was also abundance of carbohydrates and fats. And, as a kid, I enjoyed those carbohydrates and fats. And trust me, I didn't only eat the things that my parents put on my plate. And I didn't have that genetic gift. I wasn't that kid who, would take his shirt off and there was no ounce of fat on him and he had abs since he was 5 years old. I was the kid who maybe held a little bit of body fat. I have a brother who was more genetically gifted from that perspective. And unfortunately, I wasn't, even though I was a very, very active kid. I loved sports. I loved football. I loved skateboarding, tennis, anything revolved around sport, I really enjoyed. However, I still was holding a fair amount of body fat. And as I transitioned into my teen years, you're in your PE classes, your physical education classes. I'm taking my shirt off to get changed for PE. I'm looking around and, these guys' bodies, some of them look the same as mine. Some of them maybe are holding a little bit more body fat and some of them are very lean and thin. And, when you're a kid, you still got an idea of what the quote unquote great body looks like, and I started to get like a little few names here and there. It wasn't intense bullying by any means. It really wasn't, but it was enough to make me self-conscious. It was enough to make me look down and be like, I'm not really happy with what I see here. So what I ended up doing is I would go to the toilet cubicles to go change my shirt. I would pretend like I was just going to the bathroom, go and change my t-shirt at the same time, come back out, so I didn't have to experience, the name calling and all that type of stuff as well. So that hit me hard because I was like, I'm a super active kid. I'm kind of eating what just about everyone else is, which isn't, particularly healthy as a child, but I was still holding this body fat and I wasn't really sure what to do about it. And this is where I give a lot of credit to young teenage Elliot. And I just decided that one day, okay, let me just search on Google what some of the people who have great physiques in my eyes are doing, and a lot of the time, most people's idols are people like Arnold Schwarzenegger or some of these big bodybuilders. Mine was a little bit more, what can you say, a little bit more low-key compared to that. So I was like, David Beckham, body and diet. Zac Efron, because he was big in High School Musical at the time. What was their diet and their training regime like? And everything I saw pointed to high protein, low carb. High protein, low carb. And I was like, I have no idea what any of this means, but I'm aware that it seems to be a recurring theme. So I was like, okay, how do I replicate that? Right now, my parents are still cooking for me. I'm still a kid. So I go to my freezers and I look inside the freezer in the fridge. And I'm like, okay, let me look at the back of these boxes. Okay, this has, it's in the teens of protein. Okay, that seems good. I wasn't caring about fat or calories. I was like, okay, if the carbs are kind of low, and I considered low to be under 10, and if the protein seemed over 10, I was like, okay, this seems like a good thing. So I took these like breaded chicken breasts. I was like, perfect, they're for me. And then I looked deeper and I found like these breaded, what do you call them in America, fish sticks. And I was like, okay, these are not bad. They've got a little bit more fat in them, but they still fit within that protein requirement. And my mom's a vegetarian. I was like, there's some vegetarian burgers in here as well. So this was my little collection of protein out of all the things that I could find in my household. I was like, perfect. I'm only going to eat this moving forward. I'm going to have one of these chicken breasts, 2 of these vegetarian burgers, and like 2 fish fingers or fish sticks, whatever you call them. And that was my first introduction into protein. And I was like, okay, the training component needs to happen as well. So what do I do here? And I was like, okay, they mostly seem to be going to the gym. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can afford it as a child. So I was like, okay, let me see what I can do at home. And I start bicep curling the shampoo bottles. I put 2 together. I start bicep curling the shampoo bottles. I do these tricep dips on the back of my bath. And we have a bathroom stool as well. So I do some elevated planks as well. And I just do that for 15-20 minutes in my bathroom, combined it with my put together protein diet. And that's where it all begun for me. And it's not like I saw any changes overnight, but there was something within little Elliot. It was like, you're kind of taking control, you're taking responsibility here, and you could start to see some small changes happening, whether it was just, a little bit of calorie restriction, a little extra exercise, whatever it might have been that helped me. It ended up moving me in that direction. And then that that then ended up manifesting into, okay, wow, I'm approaching 15 years of age now. Maybe I can look into getting a gym membership. And there was like teenage people hours between 3 and 5. So I was like, great. Usually I would hang out with my friends at the school gates between 3 and 5. Well, all of a sudden I was like, nope, I'm going to skip the friends part. I'm going to head straight home, head to the gym, do whatever I can for 2 hours. And, most of the time I stayed till 6 p.m. because they didn't notice that I was staying in there a little bit later. And then I got addicted to the gym and I was like, I love this. And then all of a sudden, a summer comes along and I'm doing my gym. I'm doing what I know about fitness, which is not a lot. I mean, nutrition, I should say, which is not a lot. And I come back the next year of school looking different. People have noticed a change in me. And I was like, damn, I felt great. Like, it was super unusually put together, but I had this passion for it. I committed to going to the gym like 5-6 times a week just because I loved it. And I ended up transforming my body, not in an outrageous way, but I went from being that chubby kid who people made fun of to the guy who was like a little bit leaner. As a child, it's not usual to see a little bit of muscle on a kid either. And I was going to the gym. I started to see that. And I saw an area in which I was kind of excelling in, which no one had kind of caught it onto yet, and that was my thing. So ever since then, it's just been one of those things that it helped me so much that it stuck with me for the remainder of my days. And there's a lot between then and now, but that's ultimately what started me on the path of my journey.
What was the tipping point in terms of what age were you were you like 13, 14, 12? Like what age, if you had to put a number on it, what would you say?
I would have to say I'm a younger child for my year group in school. So I think it would have been like being 14 and turning into a 15-year-old at that stage. Wow.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny because we have a lot of similarities in that regard of being uncomfortable in your own skin to some degree. Mm-hmm. When I was in that middle school, junior high school time frame, when you're just about to go through puberty and you're going through puberty, and I took on some extra weight, and I was always kind of a very, I say skinny, but lean kid, didn't carry any extra weight on my body. And then all of a sudden by like 6th grade, after elementary school, I'm in junior high school, pardon me, I started to get a little bit heavier. And I don't know if that was, I'm sure it's a combination of diet and exercise, the combination of those two things. But I was always a very active kid. And I probably wasn't eating the best things because, I was very much eating stuff out of the box and things that are quickly prepared and not necessarily fresh. Certainly some fish sticks in that mix. Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat, the old Rice-A-Roni, which was like, just rice out of a box. So you mix with water and butter, to cook. And it mixed well with just about any other staple food item, some type of chicken fillet, or something like that. But I did not like the locker room experience in middle school and changing in the locker room. And you look around, you see other kids that are really fit or already have hair under their arms. And I was, and I'm like, geez, man, not only am I not hairy yet, I'm also feeling a little pudgy and like not really loving the way I look with a t-shirt off. Mm-hmm. So how can I escape this? And I think I too would change sometimes inside the enclosed toilet area just to avoid that, or be really quick about it, making sure I was like had the other shirt ready to go and I could take it off and put a new one on real quick. And and then it wasn't until about that 14 or 15-year-old freshman in high school where weight training and sports hit like a real peak for me. And I think I was where the food, it didn't matter at that point what I was consuming. Like there was no way with all the exercise and activity and weightlifting and muscle building that I was going to hold on to much body fat. So my body very quickly kind of went through this massive change at like that 14 or 15-year-old period. Much like you, and I felt much more comfortable, like this is what I'm supposed to look like. This is who I am, But it went away for a few years, and I would say that's a very tough point for boys and girls, like that 12 to 14 year period. Very tough. I think for some it might be fine and seamless, but I think for many it's very difficult.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And it was definitely my experience, as it sounds like it was for you. And there isn't really much education there on what to do. And I think that I know that you've got young children, and I know that you'll be planning to educate them on that aspect, getting them to be really comfortable in their bodies and their skin. But no one was doing that for me. No one had said any word about that. So you kind of just have to navigate it yourself. And it doesn't even matter if you're the leanest kid in class, you're going to get made fun of for something, right? So if you have body fat, or if you have a lack of hair, or whatever it might be, you're going to get called out for it. And it was a pretty challenging experience. I'm lucky enough that, like I said, it wasn't intense. It wasn't anything that really pushed me too much in a box, but I know it does for many people. So I like to share that story to tell people that taking that responsibility of your health and your well-being can turn things around in more ways than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. And you really liked this new Elliot that you kind of created. You liked feeling that people took notice of this new shape you had, that you had built some muscle, that you had leaned out, that you look different now than you once did. And you were like, yeah, I do. And I'm loving this. I'm loving this reaction. So that just kind of, I would say, stoked your fires even a little bit more to kind of keep going on that path.
Yeah, without a doubt. I know that a lot of us, when we're much younger, especially at that age, we will do things for vanity purposes. And that wasn't my primary goal at that time. I didn't want to be in shape per se. I just didn't want to get name called anymore. I just wanted a flat stomach so no one could point it out or grab it or whatever, But it ended up doing even more than that. And that felt amazing for me. It was like something that I did myself. And, and this is what I always love about health and fitness to this day, is that it rewards the effort that you put in. And I recognize that. And my reward at that time was, other people noticing and me feeling better in myself. And that just reinforced that this is a good thing for you to be doing, Elliot. And, you enjoy it as well. So that combination of enjoyment and feeling like you're getting a really, really good return on your investment is a powerful thing for being able to continue it on a long-term basis.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you were pulling the foods out of the freezer to look at the nutritional facts on them to determine, is this something I should be eating or not? I mean, I think it's such a huge disservice to our children in school that there should be a class on nutrition. There should be a class at every level. I even feel like that's about nutrition and fitness and about exercise and the impact on your body and on your mind and knowing what foods are going. But you know what? It's as good as the school systems can be and the things that they can do right. They fail in there's huge gaps in certain areas of life. And I feel that nutrition and physical fitness is one. I mean, yeah, you can do a PE class where the kids go out and run around and stuff, but there's not a lot of good retention as to why and what that does to the body. And test them on that knowledge, test them on the physiology and then biomechanics. And they should be learning this stuff. And because it's good application for later on. And then nutrition, and how about financial stuff like learning how to budget your own bank account or something, your own personal checking and savings. I think we don't arm our kids, certainly here in the States, with the stuff that they really need as high schoolers and out of high school and in the world. They need these things to function. They don't need algebra 2 and trigonometry unless they're going into engineering or architecture. They need other things that are more real world. And I feel like it's not really a side topic from where we're talking. I think it's things I think about with my own kids. Like they need to know what good snacks are from bad snacks, and how much protein am I eating in this meal versus is this all a carb meal? I mean, these are important things for an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old to know, because it has a direct impact on how they feel and how they perform.
I can agree more. And a couple that we didn't mention there was mental health, communication skills, putting boundaries in place, real world application things that really trip us up later in life. And no one teaches you communication skills. But at the end of the day, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to get a job and make some money, which you absolutely are going to want to do, you need to learn how to communicate with people. You need to learn how to be able to have a solid and strong conversation. You need to be able to protect your mental well-being throughout all the things that you experience as being a child. And there's just none of that whatsoever. And I think that was the big challenge in the UK as well, is that there was nothing. You guys in the US, you're crazy about sports, and that's amazing. In the UK, unless you're gifted at soccer, football, no one really cares, to be completely honest. There isn't any, or maybe rugby as well, to be honest, but there isn't really any attention placed on any other sport. There's no, well, in my day anyway, there really wasn't any gym work or anything like that. And that's why I was lucky to come across that, because had I left it to school, it wouldn't have happened. I went to my local community center, and maybe there was one other guy in the whole of school, and he was one of these guys who already looked about 18 years of age anyway. And he was the only other guy going to the gym. And we were left to our own devices from that perspective. So there was a massive, massive gap. I don't know where that is now in the UK, but for me, absolutely, I was left to my own devices when it came to fitness. And as you mentioned, in terms of financial application and mental well-being and communication and all these things that we use on a day-to-day basis, as you mentioned, the school system does a lot of good things, but it's also, as you put it rightly, in a way, it's a harsh word, but they're failing in many senses too.
Yeah. And I know a lot, I've been part of, my son just left elementary school. He just completed his 5th grade, so he'll be moving on to a new school. And I loved the school where he was since he was a kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And great teachers. I was heavily involved. I volunteered at the school many times and would teach. I'd go there on special days to teach the kids, and always had a good time in the classrooms with the teachers. And they do a great job at that particular school system. I was always very pleased with it. But I've heard some horror stories in our country, and specifically, certain cities and areas of the country that are much more, let's say, just on a different side when it comes to how we educate our kids. It's not that way here in Florida. We're in a little bit of a bubble. And people are still sane and logical with things. I feel like it's a safe haven, if you will, I think, for our kids and for our future. But I've heard just some horror stories about the things that they're focused on and teaching and stuff, and it's really sad for me and frustrating for me as a parent. But we have a great responsibility to our next generation, and that's to let them see the value in eating well and moving their bodies and caring about that and why that matters, why it's important. And I love the fact that you just took accountability at a young age when there wasn't really anything else around you pushing you in that direction. You just kind of took it upon yourself, like, I want something different for myself, so I got to figure this out on my own and take action. And you did, and that's really commendable. And I wish more people did that here. And I wish all I can hope for my kids is that they see what mom and dad are doing, and that they want to kind of fall in line with that, and we could just kind of guide them. But it really does come down to the individual. We can't force our kids, I think, into a certain lifestyle. They have to naturally and organically want to go in that direction. Otherwise, I mean, they're just gonna. I think the harder you push, sometimes they just go in a different direction anyway, right? So it's like that fine line of, how do I do it in a way that's loving and that shows that this is the better way to go, the better direction to move in?
Absolutely. And I think it's just about giving them the best chance of success. It's just starting them on the right foot. And as you're experiencing as a dad, and hopefully I'll be blessed enough to experience one day myself as well, is that they're going to make their mistakes. How much you teach them, how much you show them the way, ultimately they need to make their mistakes as well, because that's what hardens you up in life. And that's what teaches you a lot of good lessons that you can apply to your future. But at the same time, better to give them a bit of a head start than starting them with one arm, tied behind their back, right? Which is what I feel like we're kind of currently doing right now. And hopefully, the next generation myself, yourself, of people who are going to look to raise their children and hopefully have an influence of children around them. And also, as a coach working with parents right now, and making them kind of change their health and fitness habits. It's not too late for them to start influencing their kids. And it's really commendable when, someone gets to their 30s, 40s, they're starting to think about having children and they're like, I want to get myself sorted out before I bring life into this earth. And I'm like, that's commendable, especially considering, just like myself and perhaps many people listening, you didn't necessarily have the best education. I do give credit to my parents. They wanted me to be healthy. They just didn't have the tools themselves. And, realistically, I think it's amazing where a lot of us now are thinking about, okay, how can we take the steps, start with ourselves, look in the mirror first, and then give our children at least the best chance of success. Then it's on them, then it's on them to mess up or to do amazingly well and ultimately live their paths.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've talked many times in past episodes about that ripple effect, and be a ripple. And that's what we hope to accomplish with our podcasts. I'm sure what you hope to accomplish with your Simply Fit podcast. That we're throwing pebbles. We're throwing pebbles and we're just nudging and we're just trying to create a ripple that's hopefully going to just very nicely carry somebody and move them in a direction that's better, that's positive, that is real change, that moves the needle for them in some capacity. Let's talk about, obviously, physical fitness is very much about, aesthetics and about looks and about function, but also its big impact on the mental state and the way we think about things, the way we see ourselves and our mindsets. Talk about that component of the journey for you and what you've noticed in transformation stories that you've helped create.
Yeah, I think it's an enormous piece of the puzzle. And I think that this is one of those things that when you go to your personal training school and you get your education on health and fitness, you're like, okay, perfect. I know exactly. Well, you don't take a great deal away from it, but you've got some idea of the fundamentals of nutrition and training. You're like, okay, I'm armed and ready to tackle the world of people with weight loss challenges, obesity, health problems. And then you find yourself running into a bit of a wall because your health in training, your new training and nutrition, I should say, can only get them so far. And you realize that they have all these other challenges with the stress that they're experiencing in their lives, the mental blocks that they have, the trauma that is still reinforcing them to do the things that are avoiding them from having the health and the bodies that they ultimately want. And then all these other lifestyle variables that come into play. And all of a sudden you're like, well, no one signed me up for this. I didn't realize that this would be an enormous part of my job. And I quickly learned it. I quickly learned that, okay, perfect. We can get someone on a good workout program, get someone on a good nutrition program. We can see some great results. And I never want to take that emphasis away from that aspect because so many people can feel so much better by just doing those things. However, when it comes to keeping someone there on a very long-term basis, something in that mindset and that identity piece needs to transform as well. We need to get this person to start to think about their behaviors, the things they do on a day-to-day basis to ensure that it sticks, because if anyone can follow something for 90 days, 6 months, or even a couple of years, but to get to someone to stick to it for life, that has to come down to a person in some way transforming their behaviors and ultimately their identity. So I discovered that a lot with my clients, to be completely honest. I didn't have that identity challenge because I was the trainer. I was the trainer and I was the guy who loved the gym and loved my nutrition. However, my mental health challenges came from not understanding childhood trauma, not understanding my self-worth and self-confidence issues, which I think all of us kind of experience to somewhat of a degree. And I ultimately feel, and I always say this to people, like up until the age of maybe like 21, 22 years old, I was not in control of my own ship. My life was kind of just controlling me because of my thoughts led me to where I thought I should go. I had no consciousness, I would say. And, through a series of having some mental health challenges myself, that was when I was able to open my eyes to recognize that, Elliot, you're the captain here of your ship. And that before I was just kind of watching and looking out the window and wondering like how this thing keeps steering in each of the directions I'm going. I'm like, I feel like I have an influence, but my hands weren't on the wheel. I wasn't steering things. I wasn't heading in the direction that I ultimately wanted to be. And that led to a lot of challenges. So that was my personal experience with challenges from a mental well-being standpoint that knocked on into my fitness, my health. And I see it with my clients all the time. And, as much as that period of my life was probably one of them, it was the most challenging period for me, I look back with gratitude now because I see so many people going through it. And had they asked me as that young, inexperienced trainer who was just very excited to get people in shape, I wouldn't have known what to do with them. I didn't know what to do with them. I could just help them work out, but I didn't know what to do with the traumas that they were experiencing. And now I'm not a qualified psychologist or therapist by any means, but I can help them work through that. I can guide them in the right direction. I can give them some tools that helps me. And that ultimately has unlocked a different path in my ability as a coach and the people that I've been able to help, which has been truly transformative in many ways because of, as you say, it's a full system. It's mind, body, and spirit. It's not any of those individually working at any time. And by me opening up that path within myself, it helped me do it with other people. And that's ultimately taken me from just a generic fitness coach to someone who can genuinely help someone transform the course of their life. And that's what really, there was a point where I got a little bit tired of fitness coaching, to be honest. I was like, I'm kind of just there, a paid buddy who helps them work out. And then I kind of tapped into this aspect, the body transformation stuff, and kind of working into the mindset. I was like, okay, new level unlocked, and this level is super damn exciting, and I can't see the limit now. Whereas before I was like, okay, I feel like this is not as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And then that took me to the next level in my life and my career as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful perspective, and really owning that level of responsibility, as like, wow, living in that gratitude of it too, I'm empowered by this. Like I love what it can do. I know firsthand what it's done for me, and I love that I have the opportunity to do it with someone else and to help them establish habits and rituals that they can use for the rest of their life.
For sure.
And that's a really, that's all I ever hope to accomplish when I talk to somebody, whether it's a kid or a peer or someone that's older than me, maybe someone retired, is that they can see the genuine enthusiasm and passion that I have for movement of the body and its impact on everything in your life and how you see the world and how you act and your energy and how you think and how you speak and how you carry yourself and you walk tall with confidence and all of these things. And everybody wants this for themselves on some level. And I think the only way to get there is to truly have that marriage between your mind and your body. And when we neglect our body, our mind pays a huge cost for that. And vice versa. If we're only focused on the exterior and we do nothing to help our minds and grow and become better human beings, and then we're just a shell with no substance. And so it's the combination of those two things. So I love how that those things matter to you, and that it's not just transforming the outside. It's in doing the work to transform the outside, you're transforming the inside, massive, having a massive effect on that and how you see yourself in the world. And I love that. Talk a little bit more, Elliot, about getting people to that place where they can stay long term, and there's real sustainability in the work that you do with them, where after they're done with you, maybe 6 months or a year later or 2 years later, that you see them as somebody that's just like, okay, man, we've done it. It's been a great ride. You have all the tools in your arsenal. You know how to utilize every single one of your weapons, and so go at it. And then hopefully we'll reconnect at some point down the line. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the coaching journey, is letting someone spread their wings, ultimately being able to confidently say that you have got the tools, you've got the education, and you've also got the result as well. That's a big point I want to make in just a moment, but it's such a good feeling to send someone away and say that you no longer need me. If you want to stay and we want to work on these brand new goals, then totally fine. But I don't want you to stay because you need me. I only want you to stay if you want me. And that's a totally different, those are two massive things. So the big part of sustainability for me, I think it starts very much at actually achieving what you want. I think so many of us, we go down the route of stopping shy of our goals. And, we go on the path of saying, okay, I want to be, to use an arbitrary number, I want to be 60 kilos because I know that looks good on me. I know that feels good on me. I'm currently sitting at 80 kilos. And then I get myself down to 77. I've lost, a good amount of weight. I got myself to 67. I've lost a good amount of weight. So I'm about 13 kilos down now. But all of a sudden, now I'm getting a bunch of compliments from my friends and my family. And so many people are telling me that, you've done enough. Why are you pushing for more? And those voices start to sit with me. And I'm like, well, you know what? I have put a lot of effort in. Why don't I take my foot off the gas? And then they kind of get stuck in this middle ground. And then they still have 7 kilos to go. And they kind of stop there, and then they get demotivated. They lose that excitement they had for the journey, and then they start slipping back to their old ways, or they stay stuck at that 13 kilo weight loss. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you get there and people are complimenting you and that's your end goal, and that's genuinely hand on heart the place that you want to be, by all means, I'm super happy. Let's teach you how to stay there ultimately in a healthy and sustainable way. But I'm super happy for you. But if you get there and you only stay there because, you're having external influence, you don't want to kind of go the full way, then that's where it becomes a bit challenging because there's a slippery slope backwards. So I think the first part, and the reason why I see people dieting year on year is because they never actually achieved what they wanted to in the first place. They set out on the journey to drop 10 kilos and they dropped 5. And they set out on the journey to make this year the year that they were healthy, and they were got to the 3-month stage. Work came up, life came up, I had a new child, and all of a sudden it goes out the window. But the problem is that then you have to keep repeating and starting the journey again. So I think a big thing is when you're going to go to achieve your goal, really try and quiet the noise. Make sure that there isn't too many external influence telling you where you want to be, because that's another story. So many people think they want to have these shredded abs and, the perfect six-pack, and they realize, well, actually, that's not my goal. It's kind of what society has pressed on me for so long. And, it's that 13-year-old in the changing room kind of steering the boat in that sense because he doesn't want to be bullied anymore. So that's another story in itself. So really just try and get quiet and really determine, okay, in this stage of my life, where do I want to be? And first things first, get there. Because if you get there, you don't have to get there, hopefully, again. So that's the first aspect. So that's a big piece in itself, but there's probably many people who've spoken about fat loss and getting to that position. So we'll kind of skip the journey of getting there. Of course, there's a lot in that. But the next aspect of sustainability is a question I ask to my clients once they're finished is, what does sustainability look like for you? And they answer me with, okay, well, I can exercise this amount of time per week. It feels good. I know what calories I started on, and that felt good. So maybe I could be there. I don't really want to track that much. I only want to weigh myself a couple of times a week just for an understanding. Or maybe I don't even want to weigh myself at all. And once we have that clarity on what sustainability looks like for them, we start working our way back. So, when you get to the end of a fat loss phase, most of us know you're in a low position with your calories, generally speaking. You're at a high amount of activity. And generally speaking, that's not a great place to stay. So what we need to make sure, and what I make sure that I do with all of the guys that I work with, is ensure that they're going to stay for that portion of the journey as well. It's almost like going through the surgery, but not doing the aftercare. And you have to do that aftercare in order to make sure that surgery is genuinely successful. You can't go and have stitches and then go and, start exercising, doing all these things, because it's just going to undo again. You're going to end up with that same scar or whatever you might have had. So the aftercare phase for me is super important, and that's what we work on together. We climb the calories up to that sustainable position that they told me they felt great at. We get that body composition, and also this is another aspect. If it's a body fat goal, usually we take them 1 or 2 kilos less than where they want to sustain, because then we have a little bit of wiggle room when we come back up, and they got a little bit of a cushion to raise calories up without being like, well, I want to get to 60 kilos, but you've just taken me back to 63. If we take you to 58 and you reverse diet up, and all of a sudden your calories are in an amazing place, your activity is in an amazing place, and now you're sitting to 60 kilos, that feels amazing. So that's another aspect as well. So we climb those calories up, we bring the activity down to a sustainable level, and we do that in a steady manner. We treat this phase as an extension of the fat loss phase. It's not the end, and this is just like the bit we tacked on the end. This is the aftercare. The surgery was important, but the aftercare is debatably even more important. So that's what we ultimately do. We get them to the place they want to be. We work them through that aftercare procedure, and then we have to ask the question, does this feel sustainable? Do you feel good here? And they'll say, yeah, this feels good. I like the meals I'm having. I'm able to have this flexible meal every now and again. And that's where we want them to be. Of course, there's an education piece that comes along the way. They need to know, they need to have a fundamental understanding of protein, carbs, fats, exercise, what it does to their body. I'm not just giving them plans and be like, go and do it because this is going to work. I'm educating them along the way. So it's really just a combination of getting a result, getting yourself to that sustainable position with your activity, with your calories, and then ultimately understanding the formula on how you can keep yourself there. And 9 times out of 10, that's kind of what we said at the start with the children. You can only give them all the tools, then they have to make the decisions they will ultimately make. But you're giving them the best chance of that. And they have something to look after because they love this physique. They love how they feel. And that's quite often enough to keep people going. So that's ultimately how we get people from A to B, but ultimately keep them at B, which is debatably one of the most important parts.
Yeah. You help them to fall in love with that process, which I think is so key. And I think most people can resonate with the story of a championship winning team. And that can be for any sport. It could be football in your country, in the U.S. called soccer, right? But football, as we know, internationally is like the biggest sport in the world. In the States, we have so many sports. It's like we don't even know what's our favorite, right? We have so many between football and baseball. It depends on the time of year. And hockey is so big here. And so everybody has like a favorite sports team they can think of, or certainly one they can think of as a championship team. And when you see a championship team and you see them celebrating and they got the confetti falling down on top and they're holding the trophy and they're rah, 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 and they're exciting and hugging each other, they're in that moment, right? In that championship moment. But what do you think made that championship moment so special for all of them? Just that day and that one game that they played, or all the games and all the days that led up to that day? Mm-hmm. And if they reflect back on those times and those years, yeah, it's special to win that championship, and it's special to have that one memorable day and experience. But it was all the moments that led up to that, all the practices, all the tough times, all the fallbacks and setbacks, and all the relationship building and moments that they had together and experiences is what made it worthwhile. And in life, it's the same way. If we can just get to a place where we're really relishing in the journey and in each moment, in each day, and each time we get up a little earlier and go for a walk, or each time we make time for that 20-minute workout that we didn't think we'd be able to make time for, and it's falling in love with those moments, knowing that the goal is what the goal is, but I gotta like getting there. I gotta really enjoy these moments and make and pile up all these little victories and wins every single day. I have breath in my lungs. And it's those people that ultimately get the results that they're after, because they love the grind. They love each day. Like, you look forward to your workout. You look forward to eating a good meal, eating a clean meal, do something good for your body. You look forward to going for a walk on the beach or whatever time you have to exercise in a particular day. That's special for you and enjoyable for you. And if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to stick with it. And so that's what we encourage all the time, is like, whatever that activity is for you, what gets you moving in the world, then, hopefully it's something. Because if you don't love movement, then you're not gonna get the physique that you desire for yourself. But if you love it, you'll stick with it. Is really what we're talking about here. You gotta like it. You gotta love it, because if it's forced, it'll never last.
Yeah, I heard a recent quote which stuck with me. Quotes don't stick with me as much as they used to, but this one was a good one. The guy said, it was on a podcast, he said, the man who loves walking will walk far further than the man who loves the destination. And I was like, that's very, very nice, and it's very relatable to what you just said as well. And it's quite often on the journey of a health and fitness goal that you might have to do some things, or you might choose to do some things that get you to your goal sooner. Maybe you don't actually love weight training, but you recognize that that's actually really going to help you get the result that you want. But then thereafter, you might actually say, well, wait, maybe I'm going to explore CrossFit. Maybe I'm going to explore just weight training twice a week and go do a sport instead. And then you've just got to be realistic with yourself. You're like, well, if I want the best possible physique I can possibly get, then yeah, you're going to have to weight train. There's no getting around that. So then, then at least you're going to love the process of getting the body that you want, even if you don't love the weight training so much. But quite often, a lot of people will turn around and be like, well, the exchange isn't that much. It's not really worth it. So I'm going to run a couple of times a week. I'm going to weight train as much as I know I need to, but I'm not going to overdo it. It's the same as your yoga story, right? You need to do yoga because it's great for you. But you don't love doing it, but you get yourself to do it because you know the importance of it. But that doesn't mean we're going to see you doing it 5 times a week and become a yoga instructor anytime soon. So I think it's just being realistic with yourself and just doing a little bit of what you need. But ultimately, if you want to sustain things for the long term, doing the things that you truly enjoy, even if that's in exchange with what might be perfect in terms of what you can achieve with your health and fitness in your body.
Tell us about 1 or 2 particular transformation stories that come to mind when you think of someone who's achieved just a great success working with you. It could be, whatever. It could be some extreme one. It could be something that's, not so extreme, but it's just real memorable for you and special for you.
Yeah, many come to mind, to be completely honest, but the ones that stand out, and the reason being is I just met a man when I was in Dubai. He lives there and we met up for a coffee. He's been a client of mine for some years now, and he started his journey. I had another coach in my team at the start who he worked with. He did a great job. He maybe dropped 10 kilos or so. And he came back to me, that coach I'm no longer working with. And then he came back to me and was like, hey, Elliot, I'm keen to restart my journey. So I was like, okay, you're going to come on board with me this time, and we're going to get after your goals. And I know that you've dropped some good amount of weight before. He's a pretty heavy dude to begin with. He's well over 100 kilos, but he always has this sticking point. I can't remember the exact number, but let's use 95 kilos as a sticking point. And he just couldn't get past it. It was like a mental block or something along those lines. And we just met in a coffee shop in Dubai, and he's in the best shape he's ever been. He's never seen himself like that. He's about 50 kilos down total from his absolute heaviest. And that's very impressive. And it's probably, debatably the most impressive part. But what's super impressive to me is how many times he went through weight loss attempts, weight loss journeys, how he was identified as the bigger guy for almost his entire life. And now he's sitting in front of me. He's got a Fitbit on one arm and he's got his Apple Watch on the other. He's wearing his sports kit. He's almost looking a little bit leaner than I am. And he's a completely new guy. And for me, that's such a standout because he's a parent. He runs part of his family business as well. He has all of these other responsibilities and all these other reasons why he shouldn't have technically got that result. Yet he applied himself. He found the formula that worked for him. He remained open-minded. And that was what was mind-blowing to me, is that you've lost a significant amount of weight, and no one can deny that when we look at the photos. But what's changed up here and what you're going to now live and what's in front of you is exactly what I mentioned earlier in terms of people turning things around when they have children who are going to look up to them and be like, damn, Dad, you looked like that once upon a time, and now you look like this. Like, those type of stories for me are super inspiring because as we know, like, the body is kind of just a physical manifestation of what's going on internally. And the way that he was able to change and flip those switches to become ultimately what he became, it really does blow my mind, to be honest.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love stuff like that. I love hearing about things like that, especially, as a parent, as a father, the need and the importance of a father or a dad being that rock or being that leader, showing true strength in his willingness to go all in on this journey, on this transformation, and for the son or daughter to witness that and to see, like, wow, dad was in this place and he took himself to this place, and how much work was involved and dedication and care, and knowing that he was making himself better for his kid. And that's ultimately what we're here to do. Like I every day is an opportunity for me to be a better dad, to be a better husband, be a better man, a human being. And I want my kids to see that I'm not infallible, that I make mistakes, I screw up, I say things I shouldn't or do things I shouldn't do. And I can be sorry for those and try to do better the next time, because they're going to go through that their entire lives. And what better influence than from mom and dad to show them in real time, like, what that looks like. And so that's wonderful. I love that story. I appreciate you sharing that. So what's next for you? What's on the horizon for you? What's coming in the second half of 2023 or 2024? More of the same?
More of the same, and my goal every year is just to evolve in every sense of the word. What I'm doing professionally, what I'm doing personally, and what I'm just doing full stop in terms of where I want to go. So this year on a personal front, I'll be getting engaged, so I'm very, very excited about that. Yeah, awesome. It's all in the works right now. It takes a ton of planning, that's for sure, and by the time this episode is released, hopefully it's all done and I can take a huge deep breath. But so that's kind of what's happening on the personal front. So that's obviously a very, very exciting thing. The podcast is another big area of my life. We're approaching 400 episodes now. We've had some amazing guests, including yourself. So we plan to continue pushing that, because podcasting is such an amazing medium. I say to a lot of people that when it comes to all the other social media platforms, and you probably know this more than anyone else, is that you have to grab attention. And what I find with podcasts is almost people grab their own attention, they bring it to the podcast with them. They're aware they're going to listen to, a 60-minute conversation or something along those lines. They're aware they're going to listen to something pretty lengthy and pretty depthy. And that's what I love about this medium, is that you have the opportunity to go down rabbit holes and go to those places that ultimately where all the treasure is kept. I've never taken anything major away from a 5-second Instagram reel or TikTok. Maybe I've taken some good travel tips, but anything that's moved my needle forward in terms of life. However, when I listen to podcasts, or maybe when I listen to audiobooks, which is a similar medium as well, like, those things that I take away are huge. So that's what we're planning to do with the podcast. We're planning to continue growing that, continue reaching more listeners, as you said at the start as well, with the amount of countries that you can get listens in. I have a big following in Iceland. I have no idea why, but when I eventually go over there, I'm going to be very happy to meet all these Icelandic people who put me at the top of the fitness charts, which blows my mind. And the people in Kenya as well. And it's awesome to know that I'm having that reach from a coaching perspective, but I'm also having that broader reach. And as you mentioned, the conversations we have can have impact beyond what we'll ever understand it has. And I think having a platform like that, I feel a responsibility and a duty to continue bringing the best types of conversation, the best type of knowledge, and ultimately help people on not just their fitness journey, but their journey of life and their journey of health and, their journey of personal development as well. So big plans on that front. And of course, the coaching that I'm doing as well. I want to, like you said, have that ripple effect, just keep throwing in those pebbles and, not even thinking them of pebbles, thinking them of big rocks in many ways, because of they're having that downstream effect. So ultimately, that's what's on the horizon, more of the same, bigger and better. And it's very exciting.
It is exciting. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing all that. And we'll be sharing links here in just a second. But before we get to that, We have some rapid fire questions, just fun, quick answer stuff. Don't think long on these. I don't think you will. You probably have something in the chamber for each of these. It should not take much thought. So here we go. I got just 5 of them for you. I haven't done this in a while, so this will be fun, Elliot. Number 1, your favorite book. It can be about anything.
The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. It's an amazing, amazing book about a guy's journey into spiritual enlightenment. It's a set of 4 books. And when you get to the end one, after you've read the 3 and the lead up to that, you're just like, I've never got to a point where I'm like one of those, those people who walk down the road with books in their hands and you're just like, what the hell are you doing? I was that guy for a week, and it really hooks me. So the first one is The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and I absolutely love that book.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That sounds great. Number 2, in line with that first question, your favorite movie all time can be about anything.
This one's a harder one. I'm going to cop out a little bit and just say the Harry Potter series, full stop.
Okay.
I'm not going to put it down to 1. If I had to pick one, I would say the 4th, Goblet of Fire, is definitely it's up there. That, or I'm going to have to give 2 answers. The Dark Knight, the Batman movie with the Joker. That was a fantastic movie as well. I'm not super well versed in movies, but for me, those are my 2 top ones. That's
a great. Oh man, that's. I obviously I'm very familiar with both, and I love because they all have that superhero kind of theme to them, which obviously behind me, very big into superhero, to heroes in general, saving the day, because ultimately we all need a hero. And I love that Heath Ledger Batman, that second installment of the Christian Bale, who's a UK guy himself, Christian Bale, right? He was awesome. He was so good as Batman, and so that's a terrific movie.
Yeah, incredible.
Terrific. Love it. Number 3, pets. Number 1, do you like pets? Do you have pets? Number 2, cats or dogs? If you do have a pet, do you prefer one over the other?
I love dogs. I'm a dog person. I have time for cats, but I can't see myself ever being like, I heard a great quote about dogs and cats before, and it was said that if you want to be unconditionally loved, get a dog. If you want to learn how to love unconditionally, get a cat. And I was like, that encapsulates it perfect for me. I'm a dog person. We've had 3 dogs in my family. 2 of them unfortunately passed, but I get to see my little dog when I come back home to Oxford, where I am right now, actually. So it's always a blessing to see him. And totally 100% a dog person.
Yeah. I too am a dog person. I've been a cat person for many years as well, but I would easily put a dog above a cat in terms of the bond, bond, the relationship, the companionship, the personality. The dog is truly man and woman's best friend, because my wife was a veterinary nurse for 20 years. And so we've had many animals in our home over the years, and currently just 2 and 2 cats and 2 dogs at my house. But just love them. I'm glad you're a dog person. That's another reason why I like you so much, because dog people are just cooler people, dude. I'm telling you, they just are.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Number 4, your most special destination, a trip or a place that's very special to you on this planet.
I love Mexico. I really had this kind of intuitive pull towards that country. I don't know why. I can't tell you why. Maybe it was a past life or something along those lines. And I visited a couple of times, absolutely loved it. And then I ended up finding my future wife there. So, it always holds a special place in my heart. And now we get to go back there together. She has her family there. So it's become almost a second home for me as well. So it's beautiful that, some unusual, deep desire that I had to go to that country is manifested into a place which I can consider a second home now. So Mexico definitely holds a special place in my heart.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. That's great. Yeah, I have not. Have I been to Mexico? I'm trying to think right now. Sometimes you buy, I know, other than someone working for a while at Critical Bench who lives just outside Mexico City, I don't have much experience, so I'll have to go experience it myself.
Yeah,
at some point. I'm not that far away here in Florida.
Not at all.
A short trip. And number 5, your favorite person. Now, I know it's probably going to be your fiance. I get it. But, it could be somebody else. I don't know. It's okay if you have like 2 answers, like, well, they're a tie. So who's your favorite person?
Yeah, I'm going to have to take the cop-out answer once again and put it down to those people. I don't have a big circle. I've chosen to keep my circle small in the sense of people who I genuinely care about. And I feel that I love to meet people. I love to network. But when it comes to my very intimate circle, it doesn't go too far out of my family and my future fiance as well. So those are the most valuable people to me in my life. And of course, myself as well. I'm a pretty fantastic person. I like to say so. But yeah, so I value that relationship I have with myself and, ultimately my family who are very, very close to me.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, good to know. That's awesome. Good answers. Fun stuff. Love it. Love the things that you had to say, as nodding my head in alignment with, just about everything, just spot on to our philosophies, how we see the world, how we move in the world and stuff. And that's always fun. That's what these podcasts, as you had mentioned, you can go so deep on these and really get an understanding and come to know people. I mean, think about people, who do you really spend an hour with talking about meaningful things, And that's what podcast offers us. And then we get to share that deep, meaningful conversation and understanding with an audience. And so how cool is that? It is a medium unlike anything else that exists in the world. And that's why it's grown in popularity. And some of the podcasters have more reach than any other people on the planet. Have more of a following and more reach and more listens than just about anybody else. And so it's such a privilege. And that's why we take this seriously, why you love your podcast and why it matters so much to you, Simply Fit podcast, and why we love our Strong by Design podcast and our Strong by Design listeners so much. So, Elliot, thanks again for taking the time today. Please let our listeners know the best places to go to learn more about your coaching and to follow you.
Absolutely. Chris, thank you so much for having me on as well. It's truly a pleasure. And I admire you as one of these people in the industry that I do truly look up to. You've really stood the test of the time and you continue to evolve. You continue to put out amazing content and amazing stuff for people to basically, allow themselves to progress within their own journeys in fitness, but also in life as well. And I also love the role model you are as a dad and as a man as well. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me and doing the work that you do. And the best place to find me, there's a few places you can find me. Best places to find me on a day-to-day basis is going to be my Instagram. It's at Elliot Hasoon. You can learn more about my coaching there as well. If you're into podcasts, hopefully you've been able to enjoy this one today. I have my own called the Simply Fit podcast, coming up to 400 episodes. You can listen to it anywhere, all audio platforms and YouTube. And if you're keen to do some workouts as well, anywhere from 5 minutes to 30-minute follow-along workouts, I also have a YouTube channel where I post a once-a-week workout, which is designed for anyone who wants to get themselves in shape, whether it's cardiovascularly from a strength training perspective. So you can find me at YouTube and you can just search Elliot Hasoon and you'll find my workouts there.
Yeah, the workouts are terrific quality. I love how you get right to it. I mean, there's not even any speaking in most of these ones that I was checking out. You just start, you get right into it. People can follow in real time, work alongside of you, and then boom, and you've amassed several of these, and there's all different kinds. There's stretching, and they're like meditation ones. There's body weight. There's all kinds of great routines that you're doing. So keep up the great work with what you're doing there. Great quality. I really enjoy those.
Thank you.
Looks really good. Yeah, this has been fun, folks. Now is the time. Remember, I said at the very beginning, there's one thing I'm going to ask of you, and it's a very simple favor. It's to share this episode with one friend or family member or coworker, somebody that could benefit from the message on this podcast, this conversation. How has it touched you? How has it moved you? Has it made you want to try a transformation for yourself or get involved in some type of major change in your life? And so we just we're so grateful for you listening to this, but then help us spread the word with this great episode of this podcast and let it reach more people. And a simple share can really mean a lot for us. So we thank you in advance for doing that.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.